Hello everybody, welcome back to another reading. Today we're taking a look at the case of Margaret Ellen Fox, who was 14 when she disappeared on June 24th of 1974, so this is a long time ago. She had posted an ad in a newspaper saying that she wanted to do some babysitting for people, and a man calling himself John Marshall had responded to said ad and said that he needed somebody for that weekend. But apparently he had postponed the meeting several times until he finally said that he would meet her in a red Volkswagen. And then Margaret took the bus to get to Mount Holly, which I'm assuming is where she would get picked up. Her younger sister actually accompanied her to the bus stop and saw her board the bus, and people saw her near Mill and High Streets after she reached Mount Holly. After that, nobody has seen her since. She was reported missing very quickly. In the hours after she was reported missing, authorities started to record all the phone calls that went to and from the Fox residence, assuming that it would be a kidnapping. And one of these phone calls was from a man who demanded $10,000 in ransom for her safe return, saying to her mother, $10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping. And the caller has never been identified. Both the police and the FBI believe that this man who called was Fox's abductor. And in 2019, the Burlington Police Department and the FBI have reevaluated their efforts to find Fox and her abductor, and the audio recording of the ransom call has been uploaded to the FBI website in an effort to see if someone might recognize the voice of the man who claimed he had Fox and wanted $10,000 for his safe return. In 2017, a retired police officer entered into a partnership with the Burlington PD to review and hopefully solve the case, and a $25,000 reward is being offered for information leading to the arrests of Fox's abductors, but there have been no arrests made since. So during the investigation, authorities discovered that this John Marshall gave Fox a phone number prior to her disappearance, and it turned out to be a phone booth at a supermarket in Lumberton. Authorities immediately knew that the circumstances surrounding Fox's disappearance were suspicious in nature, believing that the girl became the victim of an abduction. Several other parents complained of men trying to lure their daughters with fake job offers. In 1976, a suspect in her case confessed to involvement in her disappearance, but it turned out to be false, and Marshall has also never been identified. One thing that I am missing in this description, looking at Wikipedia by the way, is if they actually tried to offer this $10,000 to this person who was calling. Doesn't say anything about that. I'm assuming they would have mentioned it if they had done that. It wouldn't necessarily surprise me if they hadn't tried that, because unfortunately there are always people who during situations like these will pretend to be the abductor in order to try and make some quick money, which is extremely sad and disrespectful. I have to say that the report on this case is very short compared to other cases, particularly because this is Wikipedia that tends to dig into things in great detail. At least that's been my experience. It does include a whole list of people whose remains have been found and whom they, I guess at some point, believed may have been hers, but they all turned out to be other people, and we're talking about 10 people here at this list, and they've all been excluded, and that is all we have. And that is why I was asked to look at this case using the tarot. And we're going to start off with the Tarot Mucha, which is this one. And for any further questions, we're moving on to the Muse deck, which is this one. So as per usual, I'm just going to start shuffling the deck. As soon as I have a table full of cards, we're going to stop and take a look. So without much further ado, let's get started. Okay, we're starting off with the Six of Wands in reverse, followed by the Page of Swords in reverse and the Tower. So we're looking at somebody who is very quickly falling from grace and possibly also trying to lie their way out of it. But then the next card that we have here is the Tower, so there's definitely some type of upheaval happening. I'm thinking that this is the point where she met whomever it is that said they were going to pick her up in the red car and was going by the name John Marshall. They apparently, I guess upon meeting, were immediately falling through because it looks as though there is this losing a face happening here with the Six of Wands in reverse. The Page of Swords probably pointing towards this John Marshall trying to come up with some quick excuses as to why something is the way it is, which made her suspicious. But still, like I said, we have the Tower here, so there is a definite change. I'm guessing this is more of a situation of they're arriving, they're kind of found out because there's just something about them that warns her beforehand that there's something wrong with them, and try to smooth things over with some quick lies, and then they were just like, okay, never mind, it's not working, that's fine, get in the car, that type of thing. And she's like, oh no, this is something I cannot escape, and things are very, very different now from what I had expected. Let's see what else we have after that though. Yeah, the change is coming. We have the Wheel of Fortune in reverse. We have the Knight of Wands upright. So Knight of Wands is very hasty, and combine that with the Wheel in reverse. And I'm guessing this is indeed a follow-up of the Tower, so there's a lot of quick changes and a lot of quick actions which may not have been thought through very well, very hastily, because of this Knight of Wands charging off into the distance. Wands, of course, being a fire suit, so this is all about actions, and very quick actions that led to negative consequences. Next row, we have the Empress in reverse, so there's definitely a lack of caring here. We have the High Priestess followed by the Seven of Wands. Alright, so the Empress in reverse, lack of caring, like I was just saying. I think the High Priestess is showing that Margaret knew very well what was up and possibly tried to predict what would happen next, like trying to glean what would be the best course of action. And I guess that didn't go very well because there appears to be some type of confrontation here as well. The Seven of Wands pointing towards somebody feeling like somebody's being come for their position. So maybe they felt found out because Margaret was probably smart enough to figure out what they were planning, and maybe she tried to call him out on that in an attempt to try to get out of it somehow, or try to reason with him or something, but they were not into that at all. We have next the Three of Swords, which is normally a 3 as a crowd type of card, followed by Death in reverse. So maybe there is another accomplice here, but their presence is not appreciated. I think it's not appreciated by the perpetrator in this case. So maybe they have an accomplice, but it's not a very good cooperation at that time. And they're unable to let something go. So maybe there's like something going on here that happened, I think, between the two perpetrators while they were there with Margaret, and there's just some type of bone to pick that is a result of this. I'm not seeing too much about Margaret here herself, other than the fact that she's probably in between these two people whom are arguing. Also noticing that the woman is covered with a cloth, which is a part of her outfit, but also she's kind of covering her hand with it, almost like she's trying to withdraw from the situation, but unable to do so. Tears are streaming down her face as well, so this is a very bad situation. Obviously, we didn't expect anything less, but something happened there that they're unable to let go. So let's see what happens next. Okay, a couple of these. This is the Queen of Materials, which is the Queen of Pentacles. Okay, we're trying to be very practical here. And we also have the Page of Materials, which is the Page of Pentacles. So we have two Pentacle cards right here, and I think this is Margaret trying to be as practical as she can, trying to also think very practically, going back to a level of basic survival almost. and maybe trying to make small investments with the Page of Pentacles here. Page of Pentacles sometimes does make some incareful spending happen, so she may not have been able to do exactly the right thing, but there is the mindset there of her trying to just be practical as possible to work her way out of this situation, trying not to panic, like that type of thing. Just trying to stay calm, cool, collected, observe, see where their opportunities lie, if there are any, and if there are any, try to work on them, which I think is represented by this page. And I think the level of success there is not as high as she would have liked, but at least the attempt is there to try and work out this situation somehow in a calm and collected manner. Oop, a whole stack over here. A bit too much though, so let's see which ones of these we need. Those guys, okay, they're kind of like this, so we're kind of doubting about this. The first one is the Six of Inspiration, which is a Six of Wands, which is normally a conqueror type of card, somebody who is being put in a good light, kind of like the opposite of the Seven that we had down here. Like here they're being challenged, and over here they're like kind of triumphant, sort of, kind of. So it's kind of a half-hearted result that she's getting. We also have the World here on its side. This kind of reads like the world was becoming aware of the fact that there was something wrong, and it kind of got in the way of her success in a way. Like she may have been trying certain things. She may have been trying to promise, for instance, that nothing would happen to them if they just kind of let her go. But then at the same time, there may have been news on the radio or on the TV about the missing girl, and could you be on the lookout for somebody who looks like this? And they're kind of like in this stage where they're like, they kind of maybe want to believe that everything's going to be okay if they just let her go. But at the same time, her face is all over the place and they can't go anywhere without attracting attention. This may also be where they kind of thought they could make the exchange if they were indeed the people to call about the ransom. So this is a very uncertain stage where there are opportunities that they are exploring from both sides. I think both sides are trying to explore opportunities and how to best handle the situation as the world awakens to the fact that she is missing. Let's see what happens next. That one. Apparently just that one. Okay, let's take a look what we got. Ace of Voices. Okay, so the Ace of Swords is coming up. Ace of Swords is a new idea. Perhaps also they've got a new suggestion to make. This might be the idea that they have in order to communicate, reach out. This may be the call that they made, if they did indeed make that call. The way that the light beam is also hitting them from afar kind of seems like them reaching out. So this may be the call, like I said. Also noticing the prayer flags and maybe like a last ditch attempt or something. Like, okay, we're going to try this and see what happens. And if not, who knows? So let's see what the who knows is in this case. That one. We have the Six of Cups in reverse. Okay, so we're feeling for our past. We are thinking back to a better time, probably longing for better times, possibly also thinking of the people that they used to be able to call upon in times of trouble. Just looking at the triangle that appears to be made there above her head, like they're almost the source of the light shaft that's coming in over here on this card, like they're sending out a signal or trying to send out a signal. It's probably weak, but at least an attempt was made. Like they're trying to somehow connect to the people of their past and the emotions that they had back in the day, and the memories, of course. maybe trying to keep themselves calm in this situation, trying to just think of happier times, you know, think happy thoughts, as people tend to say. I think also mentally checking out. I think that's what's happening. They're just trying to think of other things than what might be happening at that point in time to protect themselves, I guess, against the knowledge of what's actually really going on. A couple of cards down here. Knight of Voices. This is the Knight of Swords, which is interesting because that's one of the cards that fell out of my hand when I was originally shuffling the deck before I even started the reading from the other deck, but still it's here. Knight of Voices, Knight of Swords, as I said, is a person who is very gung-ho, normally is charging off into the wind against a storm with their sword raised high, tend to be possibly quick-witted, but maybe not doing the exact right thing, not saying the right thing. It could also mean telling a lot of lies. It kind of looks like the slightly more mature version of what happened at the start of this reading, where we had that Page of Swords in reverse. Once again, trying to smooth things over with lies and trying to, I guess, manipulate them. And then we have the Four of Materials, which is the Four of Pentacles, so not really balancing our resources very well. And then we have, I believe this is Judgment, the Awakening, which has a very high vibe of being called up to heaven, that type of thing, and the way that this card is set up. Sometimes it comes across to me, this particular card, as some type of inspiration that's being received from upon high, but this looks more like opening up to the possibility of there being another realm and that we might need to go there because it's time, if you know what I mean. So things are not being handled well, and then we see this card. So this might be the point where she left this mortal coil as a result of the actions of whomever the perpetrators are. And I get the impression that they didn't even really intend for that to happen at that point, which is not to say that they wouldn't have intended that to happen at some point, but I think that they're just doing things and are not really paying any attention to what the result might be, and that ended up causing her demise. That's kind of what these cards are kind of pointing towards, at least from what I can see. Then what? That one. The Four of Voices in reverse, so no rest. Okay, so I think this is the panicking of the perpetrators, whom apparently did not intend for this to happen at that particular point in time. Like I said, doesn't mean that they weren't planning on it eventually. Could also be that if they were indeed the ones to make that call, that they were like, oh no, now we can't do the ransom deal because there's nobody to return, and they were taking a step back in order to figure out what to do next in that regard. So far it seemed like they had initially intended to turn her over for ransom, even though their actions didn't quite point towards them ever wanting to let her go, and eventually that ended up costing her life over here, and now they're like panicking. So this is the end of her story, at least from the living perspective, but now we have a couple of perpetrators and we don't know who they are, where they are. So the next question I would like to see answered is, are we ever going to figure out whom they are? Are we going to see them being brought to justice? Let's go back to the Turamucha for that. Two cards flipped. We have the Fool and we have the Two of Cups. Okay, so there is some type of falling out here, and people are also not taking things lightly. They're not letting the universe just do whatever it wants, so they're taking every step very carefully. I think this is at least the period directly after this happened, that they were like arguing amongst themselves. I think we are looking at least multiple people here that are involved, and they are being very careful with what they say, what they do, who they talk to, like eyes in the back of their head to make sure nobody's following them. They're suspicious of anybody who looks at them funny, like that type of situation here, because of course they now have blood on their hands and they don't want to go to jail, I imagine. So let's see what happens after that. So this is probably shortly after the facts, but what about between then and now, because it's been almost 50 years. Next year, June, it'll be 50 years since she disappeared. The sun fell over here off screen. It's in reverse, so sundown events. I'm guessing that they are living with this now on their conscience, and it's really weighing heavily on their mind, which isn't to say that they've been dealt any sort of justice, but just that in their mind they are living in some sort of darkness. And then we have the Nine of Pentacles, just kind of on its side, kind of in reverse. I'm going to put it in reverse. So the first thing that came to mind when I saw it laying like this was like they just can't keep a job, they just can't keep finances in order. So I'm thinking that they are constantly on the edge of bankruptcy, or just broke, living off of very little means, or maybe borrowing money from other people, so they don't really have much independence in that sense. Okay, and then we have the Ten of Cups in reverse, and we have the Nine of Swords in reverse. Okay, so whatever, I'm guessing whatever family relations they had, whatever other type of relationships they had, friendships, they're turning sour. They're just unable to find some type of happiness or joy with people. And the next card that we see is the Nine of Swords in reverse. So that is a prolonged anxiety, which I'm thinking is something like their dreams being haunted by the event, that type of thing, and just not being able to rest and let it go. So are we ever going to see them being brought to justice? Nine of Wands in reverse and the Ace of Swords in reverse. Okay, so they are very tired with the Nine of Wands in reverse. Nine of Wands is usually somebody who has carried on a fight for quite a long time and are just looking for a place to rest, but they probably can't rest, and they also can't think of anything else because the Ace of Swords is in reverse, and whatever plans they may come up with don't end up turning out well, I think. So this is just more of their lives being some type of turmoil internally and externally. It doesn't say much about them getting caught, but let's try a few more cards. There's one. And there's the card that I was talking about that fell out of the stack when I started shuffling them before the reading, the Knight of Swords, this time upright. So now we are, I guess, talking to people in a hasty manner, maybe coming up with stuff. Maybe they're talking a little bit too much, and that could possibly trip them up eventually, because the horse is no longer even looking straight ahead. So it could be that they're just trying to convince people of their, I guess, normalcy. Wouldn't say convince people of their innocence, because that would hint at them talking about this case to people and saying, well, definitely wasn't me. Make at least a few people suspicious. But I think they're just talking too much, and they may eventually end up talking a little more than they should, if they really wanted to stay hidden, that is. And since this card fell out when I was shuffling earlier, I think this is something that has been going on for some time. Like, that's the main energy that they're in right now. They just talk way too much. They might be talking about things that's kind of similar, or maybe they're constantly talking about, I I don't know, just the 70s in general, stuff that they used to do. Like, I imagine that the day that this occurred, something kind of broke mentally and they're just stuck in that age. Some people just kind of get stuck in a certain age and then they have to process that somehow. We've got 4 cards here. Let's take a look what we've got. We've got the 6 of Pentacles in reverse, so there's no charity given. There's just nothing coming their way in that sense. I think people around them are also not charitable. Could also be that they're just kind of outcasts in that way. The 7 of Swords, so they tend to lie a lot. And at least one of them is fairly smart because we do have the King of Swords over here, followed by the Moon in reverse. So they are able to hide things, although with the 7 of Swords in reverse like this, I think somebody may eventually find out that they're not always very truthful. Difficult to go against them though, because it is a King of Swords, so they are very smart and quick-witted in that sense. But the Moon in reverse, aside from possibly hiding things fairly well, could also mean that through their own actions and their own words, they might end up revealing things that they possibly didn't want to reveal, and that might be the cause for them being found out. So they just need to keep talking, and perhaps they will eventually rat themselves out, hopefully. Are we ever going to find Margaret herself, though? Because if she is no longer with us, then perhaps there will be remains found at some point. Let's see. And if not remains, maybe we'll find Margaret herself, if she, for whatever reason, managed to survive all that. Let's see what we can find about that. Are we ever going to find Margaret or anything of her? Oh, whole stack here. I'm going to start with the top and I'll reshuffle the rest because it's quite a large stack. I don't think we need all of them. But at the top here we see the 3 of Cups, which is kind of like a coming together type of card. There might be a group of people that are having a good time together. I'm thinking this may be a night out with a couple of friends, something like that. Maybe somebody is out with some friends or just, I don't know, hanging out together, having a good time around water perhaps, because they are standing in the middle of the water right there. And they might come across something. Let's see what we need from the rest of the stack, because I don't think we need all of them. Let's see what we have here. That one. And that one. Okay, great. So, a couple people coming together and possibly discovering something. We have the 9 of Cups over here. Yeah, we're definitely having a bad time rather suddenly. And then the 10 of Inspiration, which is the 10 of Swords. No, that's not. Which is the 10 of Wands. Okay, so that is almost like carrying something to its final destination. So this combination of cards, the 3 of Cups, 9 of Cups in reverse, and then the 10 of Inspiration, which is the 10 of Wands. Like I said, it could be a group of friends who's out doing something and then they come across something that really upsets them. But then we see the 10 of Wands, like I said, carrying something to its final destination, so they may end up causing Margaret to finally be returned to close her journey somehow. So they may be in an area where people don't tend to go very often. The area that we see on this card is like a red mesa type situation. Not saying that she might be found in exactly that type of area, but I'm guessing it's someplace kind of out there. So perhaps the people of the 3 of Cups card might be people who are kind of like adventurous and they like to go exploring, and then they come across something like that. I'm reminded of areas where they tend to have like these mine shafts that are super old and derelict, maybe down there, which I think is quite a distance from where she was originally last seen. But anything's possible pretty much. She could have ended up in some place like that or something similar to that. Doesn't have to be a desert area, but someplace remote, I feel. Let's see, what next though? Five of Cups on its side, and we have the Nine of Inspiration on its side. So that's the Nine of Wands, Five of Cups. Five of Cups is like you're not really happy with situation, like it's the crying over spilled milk card, you know, where there's like 3 cups that have been knocked over, and then there's 2 cups behind the person, and you're kind of ignoring that because you're like, oh no, look at what I've lost. On the other hand, maybe also have to look at what you've gained, which in this case would be certainty, I guess, about what happened, or at least where she ended up. And then we have the Nine of Inspiration, which is the Nine of Wands, which is a burden that we're still carrying. It's the Nine of Wands from before, right here. This one was in reverse, and now we have it on its side. So this kind of feels like finally finding something out, and then only in that moment realizing how tired you were the entire time having to carry this burden, like that suddenly comes to light. And possibly other things that you weren't expecting now suddenly have to be carried out, and even though you're at the end of this long road, there are still things that need to be done. Which could also be the burden that's being carried by the people who will possibly discover the remains. They might be going through that emotional roller coaster, as well as you can imagine that you have to go and tell somebody that you found their loved one and you didn't find them alive, that type of thing. So on the one hand there's certainty, and on the other hand the news is negative, which could bring all sorts of heavy tolls that they might have to bear. Let's see if we can get some final cards on the reading. Anything that we might want to still learn. Okay, going back to Teramucha because we're not getting anything from the music at the moment. Oh, small stack immediately falls off. Alright, let's shuffle these. Those guys. Okay. We have the Eight of Cups in reverse. Okay, so not walking away. We do have the Four of Wands in reverse as well, which is a lack of harmony. And then we have a Queen of Wands. Okay, so this seems like somebody is unable to let this go, and this might be one of the people who actually made the discovery, or somebody who was contacted about it. I think this discovery, if and when it happens, will light a fire with somebody, and they will not be able to rest or rejoice until they've actually managed to solve this case, because the Queen of Wands is very willful, and if she really wants something, she's going to move heaven and earth in order to get it. So we might find that a discovery like this would make people very much interested and really digging into this case once again in order to possibly find our perpetrator down here, looking at this Knight of Swords again. So maybe if the case becomes interesting again to people and goes back into the wider public, all the words that this other person may have spoken will start to rise to the surface with other people's memories, and this person over here, whomever this Queen of Wands is, might just be able to put 2 and 2 together to figure out who it was once and for all. Okay, so that is what I'm seeing for Margaret Ellen Fox. I hope you found that interesting. Be sure to leave a like and a comment. That really helps the channel along. If you'd like to subscribe, that's also very much appreciated. In any case, I hope to see you in another video. Thanks for watching, and bye bye for now.